Hi guys, I'm recently back from an epic transatlantic trip on Cunard's flagship, the Queen Mary 2 or QM2. This is what we saw. Now, the QM2, she's the last proper ocean-going liner. The fact that she's a liner rather than just a cruise ship is evident in some of the quirky little designs that you'll find around her. Stairs in between floors in strange places, and quirky little ramp corridors, things you wouldn't expect to find on a modern cruise ship. Now, this is the longest cruise we've been on, the longest time that I'd spent at sea. Previously, the longest time we spent at sea was between Southampton and the Canaries, 3, maybe 4 days. This was a full 7 days at sea crossing the Atlantic. Now, when I mentioned to people that I spend a week at sea, the comment most often thrown at me was, "Oh, I couldn't do that, I'd get bored." Trust me, you will struggle to get bored on the QM2. There's always something to do, whether it's taking part in quizzes, going to lectures or talks, dance lessons if that's your thing, exercise groups, various clubs or associations, or just sitting in a lounge people watching. If reading is your thing, the QM2 has the largest library afloat with many up-to-date bestsellers on the shelves, and of course they are kept up to date. Okay, a few things about the QM2 herself. I've already said she's the last true ocean liner, built for Cunard in 2004. Carries a maximum of just under 2,700 guests who are looked after by nearly 1,300 crew. She's 345 metres long and nearly 40 metres wide. Now that's a lot wider than most cruise liners. And you can really notice it when you stand in places like the Corinthian bar, when you can see the whole width of the ship. You certainly notice the length as well. Just look down some of the corridors and they just fade into the distance. Trust me, you'll certainly get your steps in on this ship. Okay, let's start as I always do with embarkation at Southampton. Our allotted time was between 12 and 2. We arrived dead on 12 thanks to our driver from Premier Chauffeurs in St Leonards. Now, as I've mentioned in previous videos, my wife can't stand for any particular length of time, so I always book assisted embarkation. Quick check of passports and Esther's. She's in a wheelchair and we're whisked straight through. Because we have the assistance, the porter takes us straight to the assembly point and then normally onto the cabin. But because boarding took so little time, some of the cabins, well, they weren't quite ready for occupation, so he left us in the King's Court buffet. I'll tell you more about that later. And then about half an hour, announced on the tannoy our cabins were available, so off we went. Now, one of the more unusual aspects of the QM2 and her voyages is that many people, they stay on doing back-to-back cruises, which means there are already many people on the ship, in the buffet or in the bars, when you first board, even at 12:30. When we docked in New York, there were only about 230 of the 2,600 odd people who were staying on. This meant I was one of the few wandering around at 12:30 as new people were boarding. It's really quite a strange experience. Okay, let's look at the accommodation. We opted for Balcony Club, which gave us staterooms on decks 12 and 13. Our stateroom was forward midships on deck 12. Now this is a standard configuration, king size bed, bedside tables either side, a two-seater settee with a small oval coffee table and a nice sized dressing table. Around about a third of the dressing table was taken up by the tea or the coffee making station. And you'll see there's an actual coffee machine as well as instant coffee. Underneath the coffee machine is a fridge that's stocked with a mini bar. One of the benefits of Club is we have bottles of still or sparkling water replenished every day, as well as the complimentary bottle of fizz when we got there. So looking at storage, there's a really good amount of storage considering the size of the stateroom. Plenty of drawers in the wardrobes and a good amount of hanging space. One thing I did notice, which, to be honest, it did surprise me. Cunard pride themselves on their dress codes and their formal nights and how much they request that guests dress up to the occasion in evening gowns. However, all my wife's dresses were too long to be hung full length. You know, one of those things you notice. There's a fair few hangers already supplied, and as we were there for a couple of weeks, we had a good selection of evening clothes. So, quick word with the steward, he supplied us with another 20 or so wire hangers. Okay, on to the bathroom, the shower room. This is small and compact, with a step up into it. Our stateroom's a bit older, and it had a horrible old-fashioned clingy shower curtain. Whereas the staterooms on 13, they had a makeover and they had a nice solid glass cubicle. There's an easily accessible shaver point and of course the usual Penhaligon toiletries. Now, I forgot to take a picture of this, but beside the toilet in our stateroom, our bathroom, is a real throwback to the old-fashioned days of cruising. An ashtray sitting above the toilet roll holder. Gotta love it. Okay, out of the balcony. This is a sliding door which can be locked slightly open to give a little bit of fresh air. Our balcony is a reasonable size, 2 semi-reclining chairs and a small table. The balcony on the deck above was a little bit larger. One of the advantages of remaining on board during changeover day is that if you're nosy like me, you get the chance to have a quick peep at other cabins as they're being prepared. So I was able to have a quick peek at an interior cabin as well as a couple of princess suites, just for a bit of comparison. The interior cabin, it's compact. Now if you're planning on spending 90% of your time on board in the bars, the clubs, etc., you only want the stateroom for sleeping, it's probably ideal and it's very good value for money. I didn't close the door, but it didn't feel claustrophobic. I have several cruise customers who regularly take an inside room with no complaints. Had a quick peek at a couple of princess suites, twins and doubles. As with everything else, there's different grades of suites with different sizes. But as you can see, they're nicely appointed, separate dressing rooms and nice toilets, although some still have the shower over the bath. Okay, let's have a look at the ship in general. What makes the QM2 so special, and why do people sail on it again and again? Along with Queen Victoria and Queen Elizabeth, the QM2 designed to emphasise the glory days of cruising, when it really was the realm of the rich and famous. Indeed, you can follow a pictorial timeline around decks 2 and 3 that shows the history of the original Queen Mary in War and Peace and the celebrities who sailed on her back in the day. Then there are further pictures and posters about the building of the QM2 herself. All through the public areas you'll see acres of sumptuous timber panelling. Now, this gives a glorious warm feeling to the ship. It's that sense of luxury. It has a sense of timeless elegance that is enhanced by the classical string trios who often play in the grand lobby. Now, take a walk through the central corridor. Now, I use the word corridor in its grandest sense. It's not a corridor, it's a walkway. It's wide, it's high. It gives you the feeling of space. You could be walking through a stately home. And don't forget to pay attention to the impressive artwork adorning the walls. And if you're in the mood, try and find Homer Simpson. So let's look at some of the public areas. Start with the Queen's Room. This is a large, open, elegant space, occupying the full width of the ship. This is where they have dance classes during the day, big band music or guest entertainers in the evening. And of course, this is where the world famous afternoon tea is served with all its theatre. You have white gloved waiters parading into the room to the sound of Teddy Bear's Picnic being played. Now you can get the afternoon tea elsewhere, but this really is the place to be. Because of the layout of the QM2, getting to the Queen's Room is not as straightforward as on other ships. You could walk straight through the Britannia dining room, although that's obviously not ideal when people are eating. So you normally go down a flight of stairs, round a couple of back streets, and then re-emerge the other side of the dining room. This is one of the little foibles that makes this ship unique. From the Queen's Room you can then access G32. This is the ship's nightclub, and it's actually named after the project number of the shipyard where QM2 was built. G32 is a 2-level bar nightclub disco. where you can boogie your heart away or strut your stuff or whatever the current terminology is until the early hours. In common with other lounges or bars, little design foibles you want to look out for. Moving forward, we can look at some of the other bars. The Golden Lion, this is effectively the pub on board. It's a lively, fun place. Lots of live music in the evenings, and of course this is where you get Cunard's version of pub grub. Some is included within your fare, others are extras. Moving up a level, and you have the chart room and Sir Samuel's opposite. Sir Samuel's is named after Sir Samuel Cunard, who founded the line 185 years ago. It's quite a small bar, furnished completely differently to the Golden Lion, but has its own atmosphere and is favoured by many, many people. Across the way, and you have the chart room. Again, completely different style of furnishing to the others. This is a much larger bar. Lots of comfy sofas to sprawl into whilst sipping a martini before dinner, or just chilling to live music later in the evening. Music here, it ranges from string trios to jazz to a guitar and piano playing duo. Piano playing duo, that's right, yeah. From the chart room, you then pass through the champagne bar, which does what it says on the tin. You can order vintage champagnes and just watch the world drift by, looking over your champagne flute. Upper level to level 7, then you have the Corinthia Lounge. So this is a lovely open lounge, occupying the full width of the ship. This is where they hold quizzes during the day, and it's always very, very busy, very, very popular. There's a good bar here serving all the usual alcoholic beverages, also teas, coffees, smoothies as well. There are 3 or 4 quizzes held during the day, and these are normally packed out. Hosted by several members of the entertainment team. There's one guy who made us all laugh, a young guy called Bobby from St Lucia. Now, bear this in mind, if he's asking the questions, there will always be a question about St Lucia. So if you can't think of an answer, just try that, you might get lucky. Heading up to deck 9, right at the front you have the Commodore Lounge. This is a lovely place. Quite often during the day, no music here at all, and you'll find it full of people reading or just doing crosswords. Then of course, on a clear day, you have a wonderful panoramic view right across the bow. Great for whale watching, and yes, I saw dolphins and a couple of whale tails. From the Commodore Lounge, you can also access the Churchill Room where you can enjoy your cigars, or you can access both scenic lifts. In the evening in the Commodore Lounge, you've got a variety of musical entertainment. Early evening, there's quite often a harpist or classical pianist, and then just after 9 every night when we were there, a really good pianist who played without sheet music and was able to just morph from one piece of music, one style, into another, then back. He didn't have a particular genre. He was as if he played for his own pleasure, and he was going from Rhapsody in Blue to a bit of rockabilly and then back to Pretty Room. Well worth listening to. Elsewhere on the ship, you've got a lot of entertainment, shows every evening in the theatre, and a variety of music in the Queen's Room. Then of course you have the disco in G32. As with many ships, QM2 has guest stars on board who often do 1 or 2 shows, but quite often these are different every night. Again, in the different bars, different selection of musical genres everywhere. The beauty of this is that if you don't like a particular group or style, head along to the next bar, you can find something different. The Grill Suites, they have their own small lounge and bar. A small lounge with a piano and a small performance area. To be honest, I don't know how busy this was in the evening, how popular. Whenever I passed it during the day, it was empty. Moving on to the Royal Court Theatre. This is a large venue set over 2 floors with tiered seating, which allows a good view of the stage from pretty much everywhere. It's used for a variety of performances, from the classical piano recitals to the entertainment team do variety shows, and of course you've got the guest artists. The seats are very comfortable, many are movable, so you can actually create your own little groups, and of course there are tables there. You have a drink whilst watching the performance. Then you have the Illuminations Theatre. Now, this is not a theatre per se, but like the Royal Court Theatre, it is steeply tiered, and is used for the enrichment talks held daily. Also houses the planetarium, the only one at sea. Unfortunately, due to some technological issues, this wasn't working during our voyage. Bit of a shame. Illuminations also doubles as the cinema where they show current box office films daily. If cards or board games are your thing, there's the Atlantic room where they hold bridge tournaments, or there are board games, jigsaw puzzles, etc. In the narrow hallways on decks 2 and 3 on both sides of the ship. Now this is a really interesting place to sit, as you're really quite low down, being decks 2 and 3, but you get a different perspective on the waves than if you're up on deck. But it's a really good place to just relax and play Scrabble, Monopoly, Mahjong or whatever, or a variety of other board games. Central to the ship is the grand lobby. This is where you'll find the purser's desks, excursion booking areas, etc., as well as the casino. The lobby is an elegant open space with stairs up to the next floor and of course the magnificent feature wall. From here you can see another unique feature of the QM2, the windows to some of the internal cabins that overlook the balcony. Exercise and wellness there on most ships now. There's a well fitted out gymnasium which is always busy, and then close by you've got the Marine Wellness and Beauty Centre. This is where you can have a variety of massage therapies and skin treatments, and of course you get your hair and nails done and carry on looking your best. Moving outside, you can partake in the age-old tradition of walking the prom deck. On this ship, the deck does extend around the whole ship, and it's a favourite for gentle exercise for all ages, or you can just take a pew and watch the world float by. Towards the rear of the ship there are several terraces, each with their own bars and seating areas, as well as the outdoor pool. Up on the top deck there's another unique feature of the QM2, the kennels for the transatlantic dogs and cats. The walking area does include a lamppost and a fire hydrant, depending upon whether your dog is English or American. Then you have the pavilion pool, which has a sliding roof and can be opened when the weather allows, and you also got a couple of table tennis tables in this area. And then, weather permitting, there are shuffleboard tournaments and a variety of other deck games. From deck 13 at the front, there's another observation deck. Now this is often closed when it's very blowy, but the views are fantastic when you can get out there. One word of warning, don't get your hair done before you go out there, you have to have it redone. So let's talk about food. Now this is often the highlight of many people's cruising experience, and on QM2 there is no shortage of excellent cuisine to be had. Main dining room on the QM2 is Britannia dining room. On most ships the main dining room is at the rear of the ship to allow for scenic views. Because the QM2 is designed for the Atlantic waves, the main dining room, Britannia, and its kitchen is located as low and as central as possible to minimise any movement the ship may suffer. The room itself is spread over 2 floors with a full height central ceiling. Different floors are allocated for fixed or open dining, with the rear section on floor 2 set aside for Britannia Club. Now, Britannia Club on QM2 differs from the other ships that have a separate room for the club diners. Here it's just a separate area. On the menu there's an always available section as well as the changing daily menu. There's also the club special section, some of which have to be pre-ordered. Now I would say that Britannia Club it's part way between normal dining and the Princess Grills. It gives you the freedom of open dining, you get to choose when you turn up within a sort of 2 or 3 hour time frame, but the benefit of having the same table and therefore the same table companions. The table you're allocated is yours for breakfast, lunch and dinner. No one else has your table during your voyage. Another benefit of club dining is that you get the same wait staff every day. Now, particularly on a longer voyage, this allows them to get to know you and your preferences. Although to be fair, if you choose fixed dining, you also get the same wait staff. If you have dietary requirements, a quick word with the wait staff will allow you to choose from a different menu the day before. There are several other restaurants on board. Apart from the King's Court buffet, these are all extra cost. Now, to be honest, on this voyage, the menu in club was good enough. We didn't feel the need to spend any extra. Several meals really stood out for me. The lamb cutlets just melted, and my wife's Dover sole, it melted just by looking at it. Truly glorious. Moving on to the buffet, King's Court Buffet. It is huge and it carries a massive selection. It really will cater to every taste, pardon the pun. Something to remember, it can get very busy in there, so try and find a seat before eyeing up all the food. But it really is worthwhile having a good walk around the whole place to see all the food stations, as they do vary. If you do have mobility issues, the wait staff are on hand to assist if needed. Grill Suites, they have their own dedicated restaurants. Interestingly, when I looked, they all seem to be laid out as tables for two. There you go. Elsewhere you have the steakhouse at the veranda, another chargeable venue. Let's have a quick look at the drinks on the QM2. Now, I'd say that the cost is probably comparable to London pub prices. There's a lot of argument I've seen on here about the benefit of buying a drinks package. First glance, they do look expensive, particularly as all the adults in the stateroom have to have the same package. Now, I sat and worked out how many drinks I would normally have in the day or an evening, how many coffees, soft drinks, etc. Then compared that figure to the package. Now, there are some limitations as to what size you can order, how quickly you can reorder. But I calculated it's probably sensible for me to buy it, as my wife and I both like a few drinks when we're out. But of course, the big advantage is that you know exactly what you're spending. You don't get a horrible surprise on your credit card at the end of the voyage. So, who is Cunard for, or more particularly, who's the Queen Mary 2 for? Now, I'd say that Cunard is unashamedly British. I've heard it many times, said many times, that Cunard is terribly class-based. I don't think that's right at all. It's certainly true, if you have the money, you can buy the suites in the Queen's or the Princess Grill. I mean, you don't need to mix with those of us in steerage. But to be honest, the same goes for many other cruise lines. Many have a ship within a ship for those with extra deep pockets. But on other lines, you get far more segregation, far more benefits, such as guaranteed seats at shows, etc. On Cunard, even if you have the most expensive Queen's or Princess Grill suites, you have your own restaurant, but you only have one specialist lounge, and you have no extra priority at any of the shows. If you choose to drink in any of the public bars, well, you look for a seat like everybody else. Now, QM2, not adult only. There is a small kids club and a minnows pool at the back of the ship. But that said, it's not geared up for younger people. No arcades full of video games, no water slides, no climbing walls or go-karts. The bulk of the passengers we saw were probably 50 or 60 plus. But that's not to say the QM2 is for old people. As with all Cunard ships, the age range is wide and varied. Now, let's move on. This is an issue which never fails to cause controversy. It really is a Marmite issue of formality on board. I always say there's a cruise ship and a cruise line for everybody. In my humble opinion, people go on Cunard ships, and particularly the QM2, because they enjoy that formality as well as the famous White Star service. Now, Cunard make no bones about the fact they have a dress code in the evening, and they have formal or gala nights where people dress up to the nines. Think of the TV adverts, tuxedos and evening gowns. At the moment, Cunard still have several themed evenings. They have black and gold, they have black and white, red and gold, masquerade and the Roaring Twenties. Now, there's no requirement for you to go along with the theme, but many people do, and it's really obvious they have gone to town on it. I have several dinner jackets, several different coloured jackets. I've got different coloured waistcoats and matching bow ties depending on the occasion. My wife has a similar selection of evening dresses just for these nights. Now, to be honest, if you enjoy getting dressed up in nice clothes, how often do you get the chance to do that these days? But if you don't want to dress up, you want to be relaxed, you're on holiday, you can eat in the buffet. This serves the same food. They just ask that you follow the dress code in the main dining rooms. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not all stuffy and sedate. The mix of people is as great as you'll meet on any other ship. Their stories are as varied and as funny. A man we spoke to one night up in the Commodore admitted he booked this trip for him and his wife after a long afternoon or evening's drinking. He woke up on a Sunday morning to find he actually had booked it and it wasn't a dream, as you do. So you have nurses, truck drivers, engineers, estate owners, not all multi-millionaires by any means, just ordinary people. Now, we always ask for a mixed table at dinner. Like our table on Queen Anne last year, we really hit gold. A table for six. Myself, my wife, my mother, we were seated with three other ladies. Two sister-in-laws and one single lady, and we immediately hit it off. We were definitely the naughty table. Frequently the last ones out, and always the loudest, hoots of hysterical laughter as friendly insults bounced across the table. In fact, at the end of the voyage, the head waiter told us he really enjoyed our table. We had livened the whole room up. So, who wants to go on the QM2? Now, again, in my humble opinion, Cunard have a niche where their passengers enjoy the feeling of cruising in a bygone age, where cruising really was the realm of the well-heeled, whether or not that age really existed. QM2 has a subtle elegance throughout. The communal spaces are big and airy and remind you of an English stately home, or what you think an English stately home should be like. From the moment you're board, you're surrounded by the warmth of glorious timber panelling. Timeless elegance is the phrase that comes to mind again and again. People return to the QM2 time and again because they like this feeling of familiarity. Someone described it of being at home. So, the usual, the $64,000 question, would I go on the QM2 again? Do you have to ask? Yes, of course I would. Would I do the transatlantic again? In a heartbeat. There's something gloriously indulgent about being able to switch off from the world for a few days. Add to that the inimitable style that is Cunard, and for many, this is a match made in heaven. Spoiler alert, I've booked next year. Don't tell the wife I haven't told her. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.